Welcome to our panel this fine afternoon. I hope everyone's enjoying LocWorld very much. And thank you for coming. It's a bit hard to tell how many of you are out there, so I hope there's more than the front row, which is about all I can see. I've got an amazing group of people joining me on stage here, and we have a lot that we can talk about. So we're going to try and keep it to the time and allow a bit for questions at the end. I'll try and remember to remind you later, but in case I don't, in the Q&A, do wait for the microphone to come to you because the session's being recorded, and so your question won't get picked up unless you have a microphone. So with that, I'm going to introduce the topic, hyperautomation. It's a bit of a buzzword. I didn't really appreciate when we started using it how much of a buzzword it's become. And so one of the things that might be interesting to explore is whether we all have the same definition of what it means. But certainly, I think there's an era of hyperautomation that has already begun. And hopefully, we'll hear some examples and practical experience from the distinguished panelists. On which note, I might ask them to introduce themselves. Perhaps, Charlie, I can start with you and come down the row.
Sure, it sounds good. Thank you, Georg. My name is Charlie Keating. I'm the Global Director of Localization for a company called Pega. We are a software company that specializes in AI decisioning and workflow automation.
Thanks, Charlie. So my name is Esther Curiel. I'm Globalization Manager at Sozotics. We're an animal health company, a spin-off from Pfizer. We have pharmaceutical products, but also diagnostics. So it's kind of sometimes it's a mixture of tech plus medicine.
My name is Mozior. I am co-founder and CEO of a company named Venum. We translate and localize everything on Salesforce, so we act as a translation management connector, bringing your business content to your TMS automatically.
My name is Maria de Ribadias. I'm Senior Manager for Global Language Services at Workday, and our team looks after all of the, Workday is the HCM and financial management software company. As you probably know, I think a lot of companies in the room are actually using Workday. My team looks after all of the language quality, language experience across all of the languages that we cover.
Hi, everyone. I'm Phil Richie. I'm CTO at Visch, and I look after all of the customer-facing technologies that we use. So on a good day, I take all the credit for delivering early and increasing margins. And on a bad day, I get blamed for everyone having to work the weekend.
Thank you, folks. And one of the things I'm so pleased about in the panel is we have the enterprise, we have the technology partner, we have the LSP, and then we have the technology layer, all represented on stage. And actually, it's been a big theme for us at LocWorld and over the last 12 months is really to build the sort of concept of the ecosystem, and we're very committed to that. So thank you all for joining me. The definition perhaps around hyperautomation, Maziar, do you want to kick us off with your thoughts, or?
Yeah, but you know what? When it comes to, as you said, hyperautomation has become a buzzword, right? So, and just to setting the stage, I'm actually curious to know what your definition of hyperautomation would be before, and then I would add into that. So what's the actual definition of hyperautomation here?
Well, when we started to think about it, I didn't realize there was an official definition, and I think the ideas marry. Basically, it is automation upon automation upon automation, as in just a lot of it. And it's thinking about the whole process from ingestion and egestion of data to the project management to the actual translation work itself. And how much work can we do through automation to eliminate manual human labor and create more time and space for collaboration inside the business and then decision making and allow the humans to focus on that. So that's kind of our definition. What would you?
Okay, makes sense. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. So it is definitely automation on automation, and it's about, you know, scaling the automation that you already have in place. And I think looking at it from a business outcome, because I'm coming from the Salesforce side, and I am, you know, speaking mainly to the business people and not so much to the localization people. And one thing that I'm seeing right now is that a lot of marketing people is reaching out, as an example, to us and just asking, hey, I need to cut down on my go-to-market speed. We need to be 60% faster on our content and the way we're launching it. And the first thing we would do is to just, open up the box and see how are you doing it today. And depending on how many languages they are translating to, we can immediately find that, hey, that could be a bottleneck right now. So you need to either hyper-automate your kind of request for translation so that it goes to the localization team in a very nice and automated flow, or you need to cut down on languages, which you definitely don't want to do because that would give a significant effect on your sales and customer satisfaction scores, etc. So I think in today's workflows, when it comes to hyper-automation, one of the key things is actually how are we getting the content and communication from the business side all the way to the localization in a streamlined flow so that we can scale content and communication.
Sorry, no, I just wanted to add something. And when you talked about buzzword, like the first time I heard hyperautomation, I was like, yeah, it's automation on steroids. So what, But then just as you start peeling off the layers and really looking at what it is and what it stands for, in our case, for instance, it's really transformed and accelerated our ability to shift left in terms of enabling everything that has to happen, even before it gets to localization, to be hyper-automated. So the amount of maybe bugs in the software before at internationalization stage, or the issues with the source, etc., all of that is resolved well before localization starts. So that shift left, which is, I think, the way that a lot of us on internationalization has been there for a long time, but on sort of quality and even localization enablement, for us is huge, and I think maybe a lot of the people in the room are also thinking about. So definitely hyperautomation is a way to enabling that shift left approach.
We, when we were talking about this beforehand, we heard a lot about speed. The shift left metaphor, I think, really resonates as well. But Esther, you also had a story about how automation has helped you build a localization team from scratch with a leaner team. Maybe you could tell a bit of that story.
Yeah, if I may, I want to add one thing to what they said about hyperautomation, because I think for us in the localization industry, we've been very aware for many years of how broken the user experience is, because of the way content is created in silos, teams work in silos, etc. We see that because we touch on all content types, but we hadn't been able to do much about it in the past. Whereas now hyperautomation is enabling us to actually connect these pieces together much better, centralize the quality, etc. And as a result, the goal really, and companies are looking at it from the point of view of agility, speed, efficiency. But it's really also about that user experience and kind of that user centricity, customer centricity trend that is happening for a few years all around us. Hyperautomation is enabling that, really. So I wanted to mention that, sorry.
Let me just quickly add to that, because it comes as well already. What we're seeing is it becomes kind of part of OKRs of companies, right? Like we need to, if I go back to what I said initially, we need to launch our content faster. We need to have a faster go-to-market. So that's already coming from the leadership team and already expectations from the customer that, the demand is that it needs to be faster and it needs to be more scalable. So it's great to see as well that hyperautomation is not only something you're speaking about on data flows, like it's already up there in the OKRs of companies. Like we need to speed up this.
That theme came through as well, just reflecting on SlaterCon in London, and Martina from Vinted gave an amazing story. Some of you may have heard it as well. Bless her, what she didn't say on stage is the technology she was talking about was phrase, by the way. But I was just sort of standing at the back thinking, please say phrase. But she talked a lot about time to market, time, right? That seems to be a real theme. But her story, I think, was not dissimilar to yours, Esther, in terms of coming in and rebuilding a team. So yeah, just to maybe come back to that.
Yeah, sorry, and I tend to go down rabbit holes. But yeah, for us, we are a very young team within Sozotics. There was no centralized localization before, we've been there for 2 years, basically, even though the company was in 100 markets, etc. So what surprised me was, how automation has helped us is basically the maturity that I would expect a team that had been there perhaps for 10 years, or the maturity that I wasn't expecting we would get to until 10 years down the line. We have it now. We have the level of integrations with repositories. We have self-service abilities for our stakeholders. There's so much that comes out of the box now with, from technology providers, and if you collaborate with your development teams, etc., that you can get to a pretty high level of maturity without needing a ton of expertise internally, a large team, or a big budget either. So that's pretty exciting for me. It's totally changed the game for small, young teams to make an impact very early on, and to the holy grail, if we want to be strategic and etc., we don't want to be seen as just the team that does the translations, we can get there so much quicker. And that frees up our time as well to do the real useful work of the collaboration. Yeah, sorry, I'm going to leave it at there because
No, perfect.
Enough said.
Well, Charlie, I might turn to you because we were looking for examples of kind of tangible value, and you talked a little bit about audience engagement, market entry, and perhaps you could share some of those, where you've seen the value in automation.
Sure. Yeah, I think I can give some concrete examples of the way we've applied hyperautomation. So the team that I'm in charge of does localization for go-to-market functions, primarily marketing and training. And we implemented a self-service tool through Phrase that really, it was kind of born out of necessity because there was an organizational change, and the two people that were focused on or devoted to sales localization moved on to other opportunities. And so we had to find a quick way. And within a month, we're able to implement this self-service approach, which has been extremely helpful. We also, yeah, you mentioned in terms of the training opportunities, the focus there has been very successful too in terms of that.
I have to say I'm quite excited by the self-service approach, what we call the portal. Some of the volumes you've achieved are quite impressive.
We did, yes. We did a soft launch to the sales organization. We have about 75 users, maybe half of those are very focused users, and since launch last September, over 4 million words have been translated using the portal. And it really provides a lot of benefits. In the sales environment, they have opportunities they have to respond to very quickly. And with the portal, they can get a translation back within minutes, and that they can basically review and revise and use for their sales meetings. And that wouldn't happen through the normal localization process that we have set up.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Charlie. Maria, you talked a bit about discovery and how hyperautomation can help with or getting value out of hyperautomation. The discovery stage is key.
Yeah, and truly, first understanding where you are today, where automation is already bringing value, and doing a really thorough discovery of, rather than going after whichever seems like the shiniest thing or trying to hyper-automate the heck out of everything, to be very, very intentional and really use a data-driven approach to decide where does it make sense to implement automation, and understand what are the knock-on effects, where you need to maybe change other workflows or educate other stakeholders, even in terms of bringing in that automation onto existing automation. And also, that discovery will also help you understand what sort of reskilling you might need on the people who are going to be interacting with the automation, if at all. If there's, management by exception, and, we've been talking about lights out project management for a while, and it was kind of managing projects by exception. So just kind of enabling those people to really get the most out of the automation. Yeah.
I'd like to pick up in a moment on the lights out project management and the impact of all of this on people. But there was one other telehealth example, Esther, that you had, which I thought was pretty cool. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, it's basically, I love looking for opportunities where nothing is being done because it's considered to be too difficult, too expensive, where, so we have one use case where we have our users are veterinarians. And very often they might see the results of a test but not know what to do with it. They're general practitioners, basically. So sometimes they need a specialized opinion, you know, so they can have consultations with consultants. But of course, this is not scalable. So, you know, we hire consultants. You can't hire them for every language, for every specialty, etc. So this is an area that, you know, our stakeholders have decided, okay, we can't do this for other markets. We can do it for a handful of them, but not for every market where we want to be. Whereas now with language technology, with automation, etc., this becomes more of a reality. It's not going to be perfect, certainly not from the very beginning, but it's one of the examples of how sometimes we need to look for areas of opportunity, not just to do what we're doing faster and better, but also what is not getting done that we can bring to the table and can be impactful.
It's an entirely new product line, basically.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well,
differentiates us from the competition as well, because, yeah.
Absolutely. So Phil, Maria asked you to reflect on how this compares or contrasts with lights out project management, and
we've been talking about you and I, lights out project management for over a decade, and I'm just wondering, like, you know, how has AI actually, or hyperautomation driven by AI, impacted that concept or affected it, or how has it evolved, if at all?
Yeah, so I think as you were just saying there, the fundamentals of optimizing your process are still around, you know, the critical path analysis. Let's find out where the log jams are, and let's see if we can get rid of those. I think where we are now, that's different to where we were before, is before we were trying to rationalize and standardize and force things into a consistent way so that the tools could deal with them in a very, I would say, logical black and white fashion. I think what we have now with the, you know, democratization of AI and neural networks and LLMs is we can do more nuanced actions. So we can look at data in a different way. We can pick up on smaller, let's say, trigger points and react to those, whereas before it was very kind of rote learning, and if it didn't conform to a rule, then it just carried on anyway. So I think that's kind of certainly where we're spending a lot of time, is on that nuanced kind of side of things.
So I just want to reflect on the fact it was 17 minutes before anyone mentioned AI, which is probably a record. And I thought I'd be first. So, and actually, I was going to come to this question maybe later, but since we mentioned it, what role do we think advanced AI models play in all of this world of automated workflows? And I think, Maziar, you had an example of service agents and also helping to create sufficiently large training sets for models when they're mostly trained in English. And Phil, you might have some perspectives on this, or others too. So maybe Maziar and then Phil and then anyone else.
Sure thing. So, I mean, I spoke initially about marketing department coming and saying, you know, we need a faster go-to-market and how that comes in with hyper-automated. But if we move to another kind of department and speak about customer service and kind of aftermarket, the role AI is playing there is very, very crucial, because one of the things within customer service and what service agents does is actually that they're doing a lot of repetitive tasks. There are coming a lot of inquiries into a customer service, and the agent is, you know, needing to answer the same question to different person at all times. Now, AI will remove all of these kind of barriers for them so that they can, and now I want to do something actually and not speak about AI and go one step back, speaking about augmented intelligence. Because what it does really is that the AI part, what it does is that it removes the repetitive tasks so that the actual service agents can focus and be more smarter on the actual complex tasks. So when I'm saying augmented intelligence, we often forget that the definition of that is that using information technology to kind of sharpen up the human intelligence, right? And that's one thing that the AI part is doing. But then there is a problem to that as well. And the problem is looking at least at Salesforce, where is the segment I am in, they have large language models called Einstein as an example. But one of the biggest problems right now is that Einstein can only learn from English. So if you have a bunch of data that is not on English, then you have a big trouble of training your own model. So this is where localization plays a huge role, where all of you guys can be the heroes internally and provide to each department, for example, customer service department, saying, hey guys, if you would have more data in English and we can help you with that, then you would be able to get your large language models up faster, and that would give a significant cost optimization for your customer service.
And Phil, you already said something actually about, of course, the role of AI in moving away from a rules-based world to perhaps one that's more probabilistic, statistical. Is there anything you'd like to add in terms of the impact on how AI is enabling automation to move into the world of hyperautomation?
It's making my job more complicated, for sure.
That's good.
Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to play to the strengths of all these new tools that are coming along, and we're ending up with this fairly reasonably big network of different AIs and factual kind of applications in order to to build this stuff, and that brings with it a level of complexity. So I guess that's a factor here, because not everybody has the capability to build those kinds of things. Hence, the interest is in platforms that bring those to the table for people, so they don't have to build them themselves. So that's very important. Bringing people along is also very important. We in the pilots that we do, we try to get linguists and other stakeholders to volunteer to participate, because you want to bring those people along, because they're the people that have the knowledge and the intuition to ultimately teach the AI where it's falling down and make it better.
Yeah, just on that, I'll share something we've experienced in the development of our latest wave of releases. So we've been working on bringing AI to the field of language quality assessment, and a moment of humility here, if you'll allow it. We aimed high. We wanted to build a system that could potentially replace humans in the LQA workflow, and we didn't quite achieve that. However, what we found was sort of quite interesting, which is that if you put a bunch of linguists in a room, the correlation coefficient between the humans is about 0.48. And MIT did a study to come up with that number, by the way. We didn't, that's not our number, it's MIT's number. When we looked at the correlation coefficient of the humans to our AI-enabled LQA, it's 0.46. So it's incredibly close. But the analogy here is a little bit like Elon and autopilot in the cars. I'll get in a taxi and I'll assume that the human is of average driving ability, and I'll be okay with that. But put me in a robo-taxi, I kind of want to know that the robot is better than the average human being. And I think the same thing is true as well as linguists interact with these machines. So instead, our LQA is not replacing, it's augmenting. It's a co-pilot, which I think is already good and adds a tremendous amount of value. And of course, it's the beginning of a journey and it'll get better. But it's quite interesting to understand both the limitations of the current generation of models and our own research, aiming high, and the path to success is not always linear, but nevertheless ending in a really interesting space. So sorry, a little diversion there. But let me come, Charlie, to you, because oh gosh, I was going to ask you about your journey and how you set up the tech stack, because actually we were talking about your organization's journey into this new world and how you've evolved your tech stack.
Yeah, we've been working on the tech stack for probably a good year and a half in terms of taking a look at what we had before and then where those gaps were, really understanding the workflow and how to best support that with the technology. And that's kind of brought us to where we are today in terms of that evolution. And it's something, we look for opportunities based on the content type, based on other factors that are going to be best suited, but the technology is going to be best suited for the application.
And in terms of challenges, I wonder if you have experienced any, and I know Maria, Esther, you and I talked a little bit about challenges too around quality. So maybe Charlie and then Esther on challenges along the way.
Challenges. with the automation itself, Georg, or generally kind of current challenges?
Well, I think what you said is that it needed a bit of rethinking about what quality actually means.
Yeah. Well, to start with, I'll say that I think quality is actually the thing that is going to save us from becoming irrelevant, I think. Because AI is being adopted around us, without us. Or we are at danger of that, and we're not necessarily, we don't even know these conversations are happening very often, so the decisions are being taken without us. And quality and consistency, those are our unique selling propositions. And the stuff that we know that the people making these decisions don't necessarily know the nuance that language brings and the complexity that language brings. They're just jumping into things. And then they might realize perhaps a few months down the line, it doesn't work, we'll abandon it. Whereas we're the ones that can come in and say, look, for this to work properly, we need to manage these aspects. And we're experts at managing the quality and the... but we need to do it at scale, because our traditional processes are very, very, we all know, they're time-consuming, they're costly, they're not scalable. So that's, again, where hyperautomation in the area of quality. So I'm very excited, actually, to hear that there's more effort being put in that area, because we absolutely need it, because that's where we matter. That's where we can bring something that no one else can.
And I was going to add on to that, one of the challenges that I see is education to like the C-suite, and in terms of what automation can do and what it can't do. And like now with these tools, I think there's an assumption that it's taken care of, right, by the tool, and not really understanding what the human factor is in terms of the quality assurance. So there's a lot of education, I think, that needs to happen to the C-suite. Another challenge that we face is with the rate of change. Sometimes it's a bit hard to keep up, right? And especially if you have a small team that are working on localization projects, so they have their operational work to do, then they're also the ones involved in evaluating the tech, testing, all that good stuff. So kind of keeping up with that, I think, has can be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I was talking with Phil and Joseph from Nimsy outside earlier about some of the challenges, and Joseph was talking particularly about change management. Is, you know, a big, yeah, everyone's nodding. Maria, you wanted to come in, I think, probably also on quality, but maybe other areas.
Yeah, no, it was actually just to Charlie's point in terms of keeping up with what's the latest and greatest type of thing. And that's where the partnership with language technology partners, with language service partners is fundamentally, you know, it's critical for us enterprises, because we rely a lot on what is it that you're seeing, what is it that you're doing with other customers, and, you know, can we see, can we share, you know, it's at the moment, I think I speak for pretty much everybody, we're all experimenting big time, like this is, you know, playtime. So it's super important that that partnership exists, and, you know, that we're kind of all keeping each other kind of abreast of what's happening, what's the latest. I don't think it's feasible for a single party in this ecosystem to just hold all the knowledge. So
Exactly.
Yeah, no.
And I think the you know, when you mentioned during the intro, Georg, there was representatives from the enterprise, from LSP, from tech partners, and we've been very fortunate to have very strong partnerships with our LSP and tech partner that enables us to be successful, and that's a really critical part of this.
I want to shake things up a little bit by saying that quality, although I fully agree with all of you guys, is very, very important. But sometimes it's actually not the most important from the business side. So it depends of, you know, what's the cost of opportunity here of getting that quality. I can give you an example. Like when I see enterprises, you know, we translate everything inside Salesforce natively. Then when it comes to, you have asynchronous communication and synchronous communication. When it comes to the actual synchronous communication, now you're speaking about like real-time translation in WhatsApp and live chats, in you know, SMS, etc. And although we are all localization people and quality is very, very important, when it comes again to the departments of, for example, customer service, maybe they don't care that much about how much the quality is really on point. They're more focused on what's the speed. What's the speed? How fast does it get translated? Is it below 0.3 seconds? Does it really feel real time? It's okay that it's 95% accurate. I can live with that. But the customer can't, you know, it can take more than 1 second for them to get the response in a live chat. So I just wanted to add that in, that although it is important, for some places it's not so important.
I think it depends on the application. I'm sorry, Maria. And the content type. Like if it's legal content, then of course, to minimize risk, you're gonna, the emphasis of the quality is important. Marketing, we use an ABM, account-based marketing approach, which is a very bespoke content type, and that has to be really on point. We use transcreation for that. So I think it really depends. Customer service, maybe less so.
Yeah,
but.
for sure. So I think it's department for department, like what's really the KPI and OKR that you're looking at in that department.
Exactly.
And I didn't want to go down a philosophical rabbit hole, but like, what's quality? It's beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so we know that it's not perfect, linguistically perfect content, crafted content. We certainly know that we're all familiar with the concept of fit for purpose, and really is looking at what's the use, what's most important. Is it a speed, or is it for developers or app teams or whatever? For just literally. There's use cases where quality actually doesn't need to be any quality other than just be in the target language. And certainly in some cases, like support, it's more important for the customer to be able to kind of get their query or whatever across than for it to be perfect. So yeah, I agree. I just wanted to say that.
I think when we think about quality, then having clean data on the way in is also quite important, and it's something that Esther, you and I discussed can be a challenge as well, so I don't know if you want to share any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, we're very lucky because we're so new. We don't have a ton of data that needs cleaning or anything like that. But so for us, for instance, it would be more about making sure that we gather the necessary data and how we kind of trying to future-proof as well and to plan on how is this going to grow properly and what is key that we can do now. So for instance, like we're investing heavily in terminology, in managing terminology properly, but not as flat, just source translation definition, like kind of with a view to we might want to use RAG models, LLMs, that kind of thing. So what can we are very small still. We don't have a ton of budget. What can we do now that will make our lives easier down the line, basically?
Yeah, and so that's kind of, like one of the things we've released recently is this automated curation of language assets, which I think hopefully can help with some of that. And as you say, that will then enable down the road RAG and other models. As we're starting to come up on time, I wonder if we can reflect on any advice for the audience. If you want to do more in the world of automation, hyperautomation, what do you need to get right up front? If maybe, Maria, you mentioned security. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'll get us started. Security. Just make sure that you get your security team early on in the conversation, that you know exactly how your data is going to be used, if you're obviously using AI to power some of your or all of your automations, and make sure that there's clearance even before you get to start playing. That is huge, and obviously depends on what kind of vertical or what industry you're in. But for us, it has been, and it is a huge kind of compliance requirement. So.
Would anyone else jump in with any advice?
I could do so, yeah. I would say definitely, I mean, again, looking at it from the business side, be the hero. Be the hero, go to different departments and try to understand what is their OKRs, what is their KPIs that they're looking at. For example, going back to what I've said, customer service department, they look at customer satisfaction score. Show to them that you can get a better customer satisfaction score when you are communicating natively to your customer in their language instead of just taking English. And as well, sometimes it's the opposite way. I'm born and raised in Sweden. We did a study and we saw that when people in specifically Sweden is getting help in English or in Swedish, it doesn't really matter. There's no difference. The customer satisfaction scores is the same. So what I'm trying to say is just like, let's move out of our own nutshell of localization and try to go to the business side and understand what do you guys really need in order to be successful in your role, and that will automatically lead to up in the career ladder for you guys and being the actual hero internally, so that people start liking localization more and more. Because one thing that I can see from the business side is that for them, sometimes from the Salesforce side, like localization and translation is just a black hole. Like they have no clue. They just like, we send the email, we ask for translation, we don't know the process. So be the hero and try to understand different departments have different needs.
Yeah, I would echo what you're saying, Mazir. I think understanding what the business needs are and how hyperautomation can address those business needs, and then look at what the capabilities are specifically to address those. In the case of the self-service portal, our sales organization is extremely happy that they have a tool now that they can use and get something in the matter of minutes, which probably would have taken days or weeks, through a normal process. And they also have access to more languages, right? For example, even though it was a soft launch, we heard from HR and they said, could I use this for Dutch? That wasn't one of our language pairs, but we were able to add it quickly and support them.
Yeah, I think these sort of wall-to-wall portals have this nice side benefit that people come to you with use cases that you hadn't imagined, and then we can get our capes out and be kind of heroes, which is great fun. So just in closing, I'm going to touch on a couple of points that were in the notes but we didn't quite get to. We talked about picking technologies and processes that are flexible by design, and about linguists not wanting to become like data model trainers. That is not the career that we're all looking for. And then finally, what we do want out of linguists is to be very CX focused, and that's sort of a change that I think the whole industry can sort of migrate towards, being CX, customer experience focused, as opposed to measuring maybe some of the linguistic metrics we've been very focused on for the time to come. Well, with that, then let me just thank the panel. I think so important to have the full ecosystem represented up here. It was mentioned earlier how important it is to have, for the enterprise to have partners that play nicely together, and I cannot emphasize enough how committed we are to that. I have myself recently been on the phone with a customer and then immediately emailed the CEO of the LSP to say, we have a mutual customer, how can we enable each other to be successful for this end customer? I expect my whole team to do that, so if anyone has an experience that is other than that, like georg.l@phrase.com, we're really committed to that. So it was a privilege to be up here with you. Thank you very much, and thanks for coming.